Hello, hello, everyone. It is Kenyon here. It is Basketball Rewind. And again, I'm always joined by Coach Roache, Beyond the Locker Room. And now I'm joined by Raptors Republic writer who focuses a lot of his writing and research on Canada basketball. That's what we're here to talk about because NBA hasn't started yet, and I care more about what's happening in FIBA. There are some Raptors related news that we're going to talk about, obviously, because we're going to talk about the bracket watch in a second. But to get into it, we want to first talk about the recap of the Canadian game, where guess what? We actually did a good thing. We actually made the Olympics. So mission accomplished from that standpoint. First and foremost, what did you think of the game? Anyone can start and jump in.
Yeah, sure. I'll go first. I think this game was definitely the most stressful uh, one for me so far, obviously with the stakes. And I think
Yeah.
like during the game, definitely my I was kind of more of a fan. I
Right.
just couldn't I couldn't just, turn that like analysis brain on. And I was just way too invested. But yeah, I think it was like probably one of the more wild kind of roller coaster rides I've of a FIBA game that I've seen. We fell behind by like double digits twice. Yeah, end of the third it was 12. You had all of the foul and the ref complaints on Twitter as well in the first half. And then somehow, some way, we tied the game. We got it to a position under a minute where we just gave that ball to Shea and he kind of carried us home. Um, so yeah, I think it was probably the most stressful game in a while, at least since 2021 for me.
Absolutely. Coach.
In the last probably 4 years, I would say, it's been two games that's been really stressful for me. The game seven against Philly when Kawhi hit the shot, and this game against Spain. Kind of like what Jonathan said, it was a wild game. It was a roller coaster. Um, I was looking for RJ Barrett to have a bounce back game, and I thought that he did. In his first game against Spain, it was an exhibition play. He played really well. In this game, in the first half, RJ was just looking to attack the basket more, just be more involved. But his teammates were also getting him more involved. I didn't found that they did that quite as much against Brazil. So it was just good to see him being aggressive because I didn't think Spain had much answer for him when he was on the floor. Dylan Brooks early was taking some of these cheap fouls that he tends to do sometimes, as we are all probably aware of. But look, what he did in the third and fourth quarter, it was unbelievable to see. He made some big shots. Um, Dylan Brooks is their best plus minus player in this whole tournament. So he makes an impact when he's in the game. I would just like to see more of him not taking some of these really kind of undisciplined fouls when he doesn't have to. We're so much better when he's on the floor playing the way that he did in the second half on this team because he is able to guard multiple positions. He's physical. He can shoot threes. And without that kind of effort in the second half, we probably don't win the game. Uh, Shea had probably one of the biggest shots in Canadian basketball history with that step back. I had tweeted, I'm like, this is MJ-esque. I'm not so much trying to compare the moment per se. One was to win a championship, the other one's to go to the Olympics. Both are kind of big, don't get me wrong. But it was I think Shea had got a switch and he had Victor Claver, I think is his name is, and he's an older player. He's like 37, 38 years old. So when Shea got that switch, it was over kind of thing. So it was a wild game, big game. As a fan just watching it, you were on the edge of your seat the entire time. And it was just good to see Canada um, just battle the whole game. Like Jonathan had said about the reffing a little bit as well. In the first half, I really thought it was Spain did get a few calls for them, I found. But in the second half, it's like it did a complete 180 in the game. Canada was getting calls. I'm like, that was a foul. It was just one of those weird kind of games from a refing standpoint too, where it was consistently for Spain in the first half, it felt like, and then the second half, like I think Spain had 6 fouls in the first 3 minutes of the third quarter. If I'm Coach Sergio Scariolo, my press conference, I'm probably going to mention that. I don't know if he did or not, but I'd be a little bit upset over that, I would say. But anyway, it was a good game, wild game, and looking forward to more games.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly speak for myself. Unfortunately, I watched the game in a very weird instance because I already knew the um, outcome of the game and I watched it later as a replay, so it wasn't as intense, so to speak. But it was still a very enjoyable game to watch. I think that Dylan Brooks obviously was had his presence felt this game. In It was the best tight tightrope walk that he's done in terms of his style of play, in terms of bringing that edge to the game. I think also RJ Barrett had a really good bounce back game. Just in general, I think this team showed that they're resilient and they won't give up, but it also showed some of the problems that exist with the team in terms of the depth of the team, and the team that they chose to go into the tournament with, which I'm sure Beyond is gonna talk about in a second as well. So yeah, those are my really quick thoughts. Beyond.
Well, I guess the answer, I guess, was the first question and comment. This reminded me the close thing was the Czech Republic game from an international standpoint. Very similar, where they kept fighting and seemed to be kind of going uphill all game long. And every time they think they would reach, get the top of the mountaintop, they'll roll right back down again. So it had the same feel as that. If that I recall, Wiggins scored a bucket to put it into overtime. Is that the game I'm thinking of? Right, yep. Wiggins was playing out his mind, and so it's very similar how SGA was playing. Wiggins was playing the same way. It's the best I've ever seen Wiggins play, I think, in any circumstances. College, pros, you name it. He was outstanding in that tournament, especially in that game. But this time around, they had just enough. I did chuckle, Coach, when you mentioned about undisciplined fouls and Dylan Brooks in this case. It's like ask a tiger who doesn't have stripes in this case. Like it can happen, dude. It is what it is. Like some things are just is what it is. But overall, unlike Johnathan, I was like Kenya. I was able to watch it from a more analytical standpoint because I knew the result already. So I watched the rebroadcast. We watched the second half pretty much together in the last quarter. So it was interesting to watch it from that frame of mind. And I have to give props to Jordy, in this case, Fernandez. I thought he's done a magnificent job considering the circumstance he got put in, considering the roster, upheaval in the last moments. Because I can't think of any other squad in this case had arguably their second best player, maybe best player, depending on how you see it. Just all of a sudden, just before the tournament started, it's like, I can't go. Look at this. Like, can you imagine all of a sudden, Anthony Edwards says, yeah, I'm not going to be able to play for USA. Or you just go down the list. Lucas said, I'm not feeling too good. Like, to have that happen, that's essentially what happened to Canada. And for them to actually be able to be in a position when they make the Olympics and still have a chance to actually win this tournament, props to him, because I think he's done some things. I just will say that I'm happy I seen that I did not see from the last regime in this case here. I appreciate it. That's all I got to say about that. I'm being kind today. You see, I'm being nice.
Yeah, I mean, that's they'll appreciate it, I'm sure. Hey, sometimes you and I can be a little bit harsh, so yeah, it is what it is. So yeah, I think with that being said, again, we have qualified for the Olympics. So if nothing else happens, if we packed up our bags, I'm sure that they're not going to do that and leave. They might be going to, if I'm not mistaken, Manila to play. So as long as they're getting on the right flight, we, regardless of the outcome, they have qualified for Paris next year. And I'm sure that France will do a much better job as well in Paris as well with more people on their squad. But before we get into the future, like the far future, I should say, let's look at the near future. So let's look at the bracket watch. I just pull it up. I just want to quick aside. Whoever the FIBA basketball people are, you need to work on your site interface because it is just brutal to sometimes navigate. And it's just like, how do I find the game, the schedule? It's just you got to make it a little bit easier, whoever it is. I can't name names because I have no idea who to name, but do a better job, please, for everyone. But with that being said, I do have it up. So we are in the quarterfinals, and that's why I said we had to make the quarterfinals. We made the quarterfinals. So at the top of the brackets, you're going to see, uh, whoever the winner of the U.S. or Italy, probably going to be the U.S. team, but you never know because the U.S. just lost against Lithuania, so it's not a foregone conclusion. And then they would go on to play the winner of Germany and Latvia. Of course, the German team has been really, really tenacious this entire, basically, I would say, from start to finish, even before the tournament. Dennis Schroeder, I say future Raptor because he hasn't played a game for the Raptors yet. He's played phenomenally. Those of you who do not watch Dennis Schroeder, now you know he is a really good FIBA player, and he's just a good player in general. Franz Wagner, I think he was injured earlier in this tournament. He's, I think he's fairly healthy. He's done really well throughout, and so that squad is very, very dangerous. Obviously, Latvia has done really well as well without Kristaps Porzingis. Of course, we have our favorite on the bottom of the brackets of the quarterfinals. We're going to have Serbia versus Lithuania. Whoever wins that would go on to play Canada versus Slovenia. So quickly to talk about Lithuania, for those of you who may not remember, JV. They're also, I can't pronounce all the names, so I'm just going to refrain from that today. But what I will say is that they have a phenomenal squad. Basketball is basically a religion there. Of course, they have our weakness, our biggest weakness from a Canadian standpoint, which is a lot of big men. They do not have Sabonis, if I'm not mistaken, for this tournament, but they probably will next year. I think from there we just go into our current bracket, which is Canada versus Slovenia. Now, Slovenia, I think that they are missing their captain for most of the FIBA games for this tournament, if I'm not mistaken. Johnathan, you can correct me if I'm incorrect there. But what I will say is that they still came with with a squad with Luka, of course, and so overall, everyone's going to be talking about Luka versus Shea, Luka versus us. I personally am not as worried about them just because I know that they haven't been the best in terms of their 3-point shooting. And if I'm not mistaken, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that they've been the best rebounding team compared to other squads in the tournament. So for that reason, I'm worried, but not quite as worried as I would be with others. Thoughts on our bracket?
Well, I kind of outlined this possibility. I was saying I always like the man. I always like the team's got the best player, and I love me some Shea, but he ain't my man from Dallas. I tell you right now. So, and he seems to be almost a different level at times when he plays international. So he could win this game by himself. And I asked you yesterday about this. Who's guarding him on this team? Because if you put Dylan Brooks, I see what that looks like in the Western Conference. That ain't pretty. so if that's what we're gonna run out there, I wish you luck in this case here. And I mean, he will start picking us apart left, right, and center. I can see a game where he scores 28 points and have 15 assists. It's just the guy's diving the hoop off of doubles. And I don't know how they're gonna guard him. I mean, to your point, maybe you just play zone and take your chances. So that's it. And just say you bet it's a cold night shooting. So that's my point. I think this is a very dangerous game. So we'll see.
Right. And Coach.
Kind of like what Beyond said. Like Dylan Brooks is going to be guarding him when he's probably on the floor. Him or Lou Dort. So it's Luka's not on his Dallas Mavericks team. I don't see this being so Luka centric. I think it is going to be more of this team aspect that he'll have to play in. I don't think he'll have quite as much freedom as he does in Dallas, but they're shooting 31% from three. They're not shooting the three very well in this tournament. But I think, or we've all watched Luka play in the season. When he gets hot, and he's going to be a high volume shooter. So I kind of view this as if we are able to execute on offense, if this isn't going to be so Shea heavy isolated on offense, meaning he's just getting a lot of ISO plays. I want to see RJ be involved. I want to see Kelly Olynyk, Dylan Brooks making his shots. If we have, if you get 5 or 6 guys really involved in the offense, I do see us winning this game. But at the same time, the biggest thing that Canada has been going through, and I've noticed in most games so far, foul trouble. We get in foul trouble quite a bit throughout these games. We cannot afford to have Dylan Brooks and Lou Dort constantly in foul trouble against Luka Doncic. If so, we're going to be in trouble.
Good points, Jonathan.
Yeah, I think obviously with Slovenia, the focus is definitely going to be on Luka. And I know Australia, they tried to play this like very kind of aggressive, like kind of blitz and like switch heavy defense where they're just trying to get the ball out of Luka's hands. And Slovenia was like pretty prepared for that. With Luka mainly just kind of reading the defense and then getting it to like the short roll big. I think his name's like Mike Toby, and he's like an American naturalized player. And apparently he doesn't have any connections to Slovenia. But anyways, but yeah, so I wonder, I guess I'll like ask you guys, like what would your approach be to defending Luka Doncic in a like single elimination game? Like would you rather like, okay, we'll throw Brooks on him, we'll throw Dort, and we'll just, we'll let him cook, basically, let him get 40, whatever. We're not going to let anybody else beat us? Or is it going to be more like what Australia tried to do, where they're like, we're just going to get the ball out of your hands and then we're just going to try and rotate once the ball is out? I'm curious.
That's a good question. Is Tanya Harding's husband still around? Because I don't know if anyone knows that reference, but figure skating, yeah, it could be on now. You got it. For those who don't know, I'm not going to explain it. You can look that one up. Tire irons are involved. What I will say is, yeah, it's a tough one. I would lean towards if he can beat you, but don't let the other people get hot, because that can be a lot just as dangerous or more dangerous. Let him. I'm not saying just let him do whatever he wants to do, but I think the way that they play, they're not going to be running him 50 isolations in a row, like they do on the Mavs at times. So I think that you just have to let him beat you, and I would stay home on the others and see, you just switch up who's on him just to give him different looks. So yeah.
I'm looking to wear him down defensively. What I mean by that is I'm running a ton of screen and rolls. Whoever he's guarding, we have a ton of guys setting screens on him. I'm going to make him run around on defense chasing guys. So whoever he's guarding, I'm going to have some plays running for them. He's not guarding Shea. I guarantee he will not guard him. But he's probably going to guard, maybe an RJ, maybe a Dylan Brooks. So it might be interesting for Canada to put on a more offensively I'll say a lineup that could really create to wear him down defensively. Kind of like what Kenyon said. If he's going to get his 25 or 30, that's fine. I don't want 2 other guys scoring 15 to 20 as well. That's not going to be good for us. So if he wants to get his, that's fine. But let's wear him down defensively. Physically, let's wear him down. That's what I would do.
So as the resident Mavericks fan, let me tell you, Coach hit it on the head. Like, if you're going to pick your poison, you better just let him and wear him down. You have to. If you take what Golden State did in the Western Conference Finals, right? They let him go crazy in the first half as much as he wanted to. But they made sure is the most aggressive you saw Wiggins in any part of that series was in the Dallas series. They made sure it's like, oh, you can play defense out here. And you switch. We're going to find one of these guys to pick on you to make sure you're playing them. You're not going to get any time to sit on the weak side, just hang out there for possession after possession. Second part is, to coach's point, is it's a bit like LeBron. You just gotta just pick your poison, let him be a scorer. Because if he's got guys like the fellow you just talked about, just came out of nowhere, the American diving, doing the quote Powell roll, and he's lighting up and he's getting dunks and ones every second. That's the worst scenario you want when you're playing Luka. You don't want that. And I'm thinking from a defensive standpoint, you need a more defensively disciplined player. So I would prefer to have RJ or Dort play him. I don't want Dylan Brooks anywhere near him because that is going to just be a nightmare because he can be talking his smack. Which they talk every time when he plays them. They're gonna, he's gonna just post them up. He's gonna get him with some up and under move, boom, foul, and one, and he'd be sitting on the bench beside the coach in about 10 minutes. So I don't want anything to do with that. That is a scenario that I can see happening immediately. So to me, I would try Dort, get under him a little bit, or in this case, Barrett, who's got enough bulk to hold his own a little bit more, at least to give a few more seconds. That's what I would do. And depending on the scenario, I would blitz him on only certain occasions. That's it. Because I don't want him just, I still think I prefer the idea of playing off of everybody else a little bit and having a guy helping on the side, like a Powell waiting for him. But that's about it. Because I'm, all respect to Slovenia, I'm not respecting those guys that much on that front. That's what I would do. And hope by the time you get the fourth quarter, he runs out of gas, which has happened in the Western Conference Finals. By the time that happened, it was like he had nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that actually, they got whooped in the last game that they played against Germany, but he kind of ran out of gas in, I think, the fourth, as well as in the second quarter. He didn't do so well, but in the fourth, he only had, I think it was 2 field goals and missed both, and that's a sign that you're slowing down.
Well,
So yeah.
I would say I didn't watch that game, but I wouldn't be surprised Germany put you in a ton of pick and rolls with Schroeder and just say, "Hey, man, come out here and guard me."
Germany won by 30, didn't they? Almost.
Yeah, it was like 100-71.
And France didn't play in that game.
No. He did not. Germany is, in my opinion, one of the scariest teams in this tournament.
Hey, man. That was McCall. You better watch him.
Yeah. So, with that being said, I think we all feel relatively okay about Canada's chances. Still have the day to prepare. By the time this comes out, you'll have just one sleep. But with that being said, I want to look beyond this tournament because, like I said, I think for rankings or whatever wise, there is some benefit to finishing better in this tournament, but really in terms of the Olympics, it doesn't really matter. So let's talk about the Olympics. We brought a squad which was probably not our best squad to bring. There are some people that are missing that I think that we could have definitely benefited, but I understand why they brought certain guys. I also saw certain comments from certain players, I'll just say Wiggins, today, about, again, his desire to not commit to a 3-year. Fair enough. Here's the thing. Beyond and I went through, we have about 26 NBA players. That does not include Zach Edey or people that are not in the NBA. 26 NBA, you want to include Tristan Thompson, players who are Canadian, who could contribute in some sort of way, shape, or form on this team. I would hope that we would not have to rely on non-NBA players. No disrespect to the other guys, but I would want us to bring our best squad ever, because I think that that's one thing that could have helped us, is having, we always talk 1 extra guy or 2 extra guys on this squad. We can get into the positional stuff in a second, but before I really go into this conversation, the main question is going to be, you have 12 guys. Who gets the shot, in your opinion, for next year? Beyond, I think you're muted.
It's not me. Resident expert going to the man that watches this team more than anybody else. So, Jonathan, man, I think you should have the honor of picking the first squad.
Oh, thanks. Sure. Yeah. So I think that with like the core idea that they kind of tried to establish since 2021, and that 3-year core commitment, I think for me, I would probably stick more to that commitment. as much as possible, especially for the guys who played this year at the World Cup. Um, they agreed and committed to 3 years, and I think they should have kind of the first, I guess, priority for these spots. And there's always going to be like contract situations, injuries that pop up, like that. We saw with like one of our better or best Euro pros, like Kevin Pango is the point guard, who I'm a big fan of, especially in the FIBA game. He just had a terrible year with so many injuries. And so like that's kind of why he wasn't a part of this team this year. So I think I would definitely lean towards giving the first priority to the guys who are playing and who are in the core and have played this year. And I think, but I do think though you can't like sacrifice so much talent, if that makes sense. I think personally, I think the no doubt exceptions that I would make would be Jamal Murray, which I guess technically isn't an exception because he was at training camp. He is part of the core. If Jamal is healthy and he wants to play, I think like, there's no argument from anybody that's going to try and stop Jamal from getting on the roster. And this might be unpopular, but I would definitely offer a spot to Wiggins if he wants to play. I think at his size and his like shooting ability, like compared to at least like Barrett and Brooks and Dort and his defense, like he just brings like another element to this team on the wing that's just missing. So those would be the two guys that for sure, like if they wanted to play, like I would offer it to them, and if they wanted a spot, yeah, I'll make room and I'll cut somebody, some of the non-NBA guys. As sad as that sounds, or unfair to them, but I think at the end of the day, that type of talent you have to make room for. And honestly, I think outside of that, if it's like a big, like a Brandon Clark, if he can come back from his Achilles injury, I think I've started to become a lot higher on Brandon Clark in FIBA, especially because like this team, we currently really lack that kind of role finisher, vertical kind of threat, or just in the dunker spot in general, just to finish plays at all. And Brandon Clark and his floater and his kind of explosiveness vertically would be amazing there. And then I think the guy who I think I'm like really, really high on, and I would love to have him on the team no matter what, is Andrew Nembhard in Indiana. Because, you kind of look at this team this year, and, if we're projecting to slide in Jamal Murray, they don't really have kind of a true point guard. And I kind of use that with like quotes because it's like, yes, Shea is a point guard, Jamal is a point guard, but like they don't really have that kind of like run the team, organize the team, run the offense type of guard. And I think, yeah, I've always been a really big fan of Andrew Nembhard. And his shooting looks legit, which is something that completely caught me off guard. And I think, yeah, like I think Andrew Nembhard is going to be more valuable than even a guy like Nikhil. So I would definitely make room for him. But I think that's kind of what my 12 would kind of look like, mainly just making the commitment to the guys who have came here or brought us here already, and then just adding in a couple NBA players.
May please go next, since I think I have the polar opposite philosophy of Johnathan. So I am licking my chops. Please. And look, man, I am happy that all like the Pangos of the world and the Scrub brothers and all of them got their opportunity to play. Edgem and all of them are wonderful. But listen, man, I'm looking to try to get on the podium. I'm sorry, man. The flat out baseline is all NBA players. If you haven't played in the association, it's been nice having you here. It's been great, but no thank you. I compare it in this case to when you're playing the 4x400 relay or the 4x100 relay. You got some guys and girls playing the heats in this case here. When prime time comes for the podium, Fraser Price is out there. He ain't Joe Scrub down the street running in this case here. You can get us the final, but the big girls and big boys are going to run in this way. So I'm sorry. If we're going to be a mature program and a big boy program, we can't be having participation ribbons for folks that have to come out there. I'm sorry. We have way too much depth to be going down that road. We should have 12 NBA players on this team. Now, I agree with you with the Nembhard thing. I hope when we get to the discussion, he is on my list of the 12. If we're going to pick in this case here, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. We don't have a table setter like that on this team. Now, listen, I love me some Jamal Murray, but I watched him from high school and college. He never passed up a shot he didn't like, okay? Like Jamal enjoys a shot. My dad's a Kentucky man. Jamal likes his shots. So that's no problem. SJ was technically a point guard in Kentucky too, but we know he's like 30 a game. He ain't passing up shots either. So my mindset is like, I want guys in this case here, this whole idea that we're going to actually handicap ourselves for some loyalty test when we've broken the test already. Wiggins has never committed his team, but last time I checked, that was the guy playing in Victoria 2 years ago. Last time I checked, right? Okay, just want to make sure that was him. So no other nation will have arguably the third best player in their country say, should we allow him on the team or not? Can you imagine that in the USA team is like, whoever you think is the third best American, should we let him play or not? If you think it's Jason Tatum in this case, should we let him play? I don't know. But he can't really commit to us. I'm not sure about that. Like, come on, what are we doing here, people? Hey, let's get the best dudes out here, man. Let's try to win gold. That's what it's about. And the thing is, what is so apparent in this tournament, the drop off when you start getting from the non-NBA players, as I told Kenyon yesterday, I don't think it was a coincidence that the league ballooned from 2 to 12 the moment Edgem showed up. Right? Is this certain guys can't play at a certain level? It's almost like when you go out the deep water. You can swim a little bit in the shallow. You get the mid level, you're good. But when you get the deep water, you're out there like this gasping for air. And that's essentially what we're seeing once they get past 7 dudes on this team. The drop off happens like just immensely. And I'm sitting there myself like, okay, so we're gonna go to the Olympics. To your point earlier on, you think France is gonna put that team out there in their home nation? There's a guy from San Antonio going to show up. I think the fellow from Washington is going to show up. A few other dudes that we probably know about.
Okay, Embiid could show up too. He's got French
right, exactly. Also, everyone's got their French passport. Trust me. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Pascal might decide to do the Embiid route
everyone
too.
Can speak French and show up on this team all of a sudden, right? We saw it with Spain for a few years. All of a sudden, Ibaka all of a sudden now is speaking. All of a sudden, Spaniards can be in this case here. I mean, sorry. So I'm just saying. Folks, man, ain't no one playing for any special rules for you guys, man. They're gonna be loading up. So, like, let's load up. If we load up when everyone's loaded up, we arguably have the second most talented team in the world. If we bring everybody, but we out here putting little fake loyalty tests on here. Like, come on, man, what are we doing here, man? But like, I want the big boys, man. For once, I want all the boys. Okay. That's what I want. When we do AHL, we ain't picking some dude in this case from college in this case here because you know what? Well, we're not sure if Steve Yzerman should play or not, who was arguably the third best player at the time. Maybe we should hold off on him because he didn't commit, Steve Yzerman. No, we never do that. We would never do that in hockey. And pick some dude in this case play out the European League. Come on, who are we fooling here, guys? Come on. That's essentially the equivalent of what we're saying here. The Canada Cup '86, we would said, Yzerman hasn't really committed to the team that much. We really should play number 19. As the third best Canadian out there. That's what we're saying. That's the parallel, guys.
So I'll go last here, but I'll let Coach go next.
So like Beyond's point had said, like if Jamal Murray and Andrew Wiggins can play, you gotta take them. I take this from a different perspective. And I'm going based on this tournament and kind of like Jamal Murray, I don't think has he played for Canada in these big tournaments, that kind of thing, since he was probably under 18 or something like that. My thing is, if Denver goes on another championship run, I'm not certain he'll play at the Olympics. It could be for a variety of reasons. Wiggins, I don't know either, just because of the last couple of years, what's been going on. So let's just, for this moment, I'm going to take them out. I got my 7 NBA guys. I want 5 more NBA guys. These 5 more, I'm looking at the bench. You can't go 7 deep in the Olympics. Even right now, like they've done quite well, I think, even with the guys that they are getting. Like Phil Scruggs played well. At times at Melvin Edgem and Kyle Alexander, they're doing well. But I'm going to fill out my bench. What am I going to use? I want Andrew Nembhard on this team, kind of like what Johnathan said. Give you another guard who could run things. I'm looking at Benedict Mathurin. You're going to need shot creation at some point, not just from SGA. And Ben Mathurin could be the future of this program moving forward as well. I think if he got that experience in the Olympics, he's not starting. Maybe he's 8th or 9th man. That's not bad if he is your 8th or 9th man on your roster, right? I think someone had mentioned about Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark actually, he's been committed. He tore his ACL or Achilles or something like that, so he hasn't been able to play. So if I can get him as well, he would be kind of like that third guy. I'm looking too at a guy like Trey Lyles. Trey Lyles is a stretch big, similar to Kelly Olynyk, knows how to play. I think he played in that 2021 team beyond, I believe, and he did fairly well.
Mhm.
And the last guy that I have on my roster, and no, I don't know if he's controversial or not, but I'm thinking of matchups in FIBA, which get very physical. I'm asking Tristan Thompson to come on this team. You're going to need someone to body up Valanciunas, or you're going to need someone to body up some of these the Willie Hernan Gomez's of the world in Spain. Dwight Powell, he's doing a pretty good job. He gets to foul trouble. Who do you go to? You can realistically trust out there. I want a guy with experience. I want a guy who is going to be physical, doesn't have to score a bunch of points. I want a guy who can set mean screens. That could be Tristan Thompson. I think he's like 32, 33 years old. So he can play in this tournament. I'm just looking at it from that point where can I get the bench better? And where can I get more physical when you run into these teams with bigs who can play, who's going to be physical? We need more of that.
Good points. So I'll say this. First things first, Jonathan, you mentioned the perfect name. I think there hasn't been a FIBA episode that has happened on this channel without like at least me and probably the two of you mentioning Brandon Clark. I think it's really unfortunate what happened to him. Can't really do much about it, but he would have been needed in this tournament. He could have been very useful. Zach Edey will probably be on the team, break in case of emergency or in case of a big. But
Yep.
in general, he doesn't have the foot speed right now to really keep up on a regular basis. So it's just very easy to scheme him out, and he can't be relied upon right now. I said it coming into the tournament. I'm doubling down now. He's not there yet. Will he get there? We'll see. He's very young still, but that foot, it's hard to increase foot speed when you're seven blank. It's just tough unless you're like a stick like Wemby. And even Wemby is, there's just limitations to the human body. So, with that being said, I'm going to be replacing guys like Ejim, Alexander, and Trey Bell Haynes, and probably Phil Scrub. What I will say, and potentially, depending on how this year goes, I don't think I've seen him since actually at all. But I vaguely remember that Kojo was supposed to be on this team, and I haven't seen this man at all. So what I would say is, I mean, for Kojo, he's given a lot to this team, but at the same time, I think because of where he is in his career, I think he missed his window and his shot. You know, I'm sorry. I agree with Beyond actually. I think when you get to the Olympics, you've invested a tremendous amount of money, whether it be hosting tournaments, time, and effort to get to the point where we have both from a developmental standpoint enough NBA talent to even put on a roster, but also just in general to be able to compete at the end of the day, because that's what it's about, to grow the game. If you go there, I mean, all respect to the other guys, but I think the one guy, like Coach said, that I would give a huge pass to, because you have to figure out that big man rotation spot, is Tristan Thompson. He put a lot of work early on in this program when he didn't have to. We've talked about this offline multiple times. For whatever reason now he is unable to give the time, but he's put in time. But he could be useful right now, and he's still relatively young. I think he'll be 33 by the time the Olympics roll around. He just had an off year in terms of not really playing a lot, so his knees should be a little bit okay. What I will say beyond that is that yes, I would love to have one or both, depending on how things shake out, of the Nemhard kids. I'd like to see both at least make a training camp of the or whatever they call the thing. I'd like to see that. We have again 26 NBA players, and I'd like to see us bring up some of the younger NBA talent to bring along with us. It doesn't have to be necessarily Mathurin or Sharp, but yeah, I think someone who could be very sneaky on this team would be Leonard Miller. I know he was training with the team. I don't think he was ever considered for this tournament, but he did get injured. But man, clearly he grew. A 11, with a 7'5" wingspan. Man, it sounds like a Masai player if there ever was one. But he could actually, if you watched him in summer league and stuff like that, he looks way different than he did the year before when he couldn't even. He looked like a lost puppy at the combine and then pulled out of the draft. He can get his own shot a little bit. Defensively, he seems to be much more aware than he was. I haven't seen him at the FIBA level, but overall, I think he's done a really phenomenal job in terms of his growth as a player, and I would look forward to that. I think this year should inform everything, and also you shouldn't just be dependent on Wiggins. If Wiggins wants to come, of course he's welcome to come. But I'm just saying, we have enough NBA talent that shouldn't be okay. We're hoping for Wiggins, and if Wiggins doesn't come, well then Malcolm edge him. No, then let's replace him with a proper NBA talent. That's all I'm saying. I would say, from the standpoint of okay, you want to give back to the program. Maybe you have one spot. It's a tough decision, but you give the one spot to someone. I'm not going to name who. I'll let others decide, and then maybe just maybe you give him a handshake, or whatever. I don't know. I think beyond, you mentioned give people have extra coaches or something like that, so everyone gets to hold the gold medal, put it on their neck or whatever. Sure, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that have contributed to the program over the years that probably won't get the recognition that they deserve, unfortunately. But I mean, part of the beauty of this is that they helped you to get to the next spot, and just like a relay race, now it's time to run the next leg of the race. Any final thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I guess I have a question, because I know this is kind of a hot topic right now on like Canada basketball Twitter. But do you
Jordy
guys
yelling?
Huh? Sorry?
No, I said Jordy yelling, but I was just teasing.
Oh, but like, are you guys concerned at all with kind of shifting the chemistry perhaps of like the team if like they bring in like different NBA guys, for example, who, because I know the Brandon Ingram thing, the quotes were there as well. Like about like how like he was trying to adjust to this like new role and it wasn't really fitting him or something like that. So I think, does that concern you at all if we bring kind of the 5 more NBA players off the bench? Yes or no?
I have thoughts, but I see Beyond already. He wants to answer, so I'll let him go.
Yeah, I mean, the USA, that is more of an issue because you have guys of similar talent levels that are used to playing a certain role on their own teams, and then you're trying to justify why should I be playing second field to this guy while I'm just as good as that guy. That's where you come in the situation of guys like Brandon Ingram. The pecking order is so evenly distributed right now in Canada basketball that if we get our quote big 3, ain't no one coming there saying like, you know what, I should be getting more shots than Wiggins, Murray, and SGA. Who's got the the temerity to say that? No one's gonna come in there and say so. 2 of the 3 guys this case have won an NBA championship. The other guy in this case is one of the best 5-6 players in the league. Who are you gonna be saying like, you know what, I should be getting more shots than them? Ain't no one saying that. Or Dylan Brooks gonna come in there and say so, please. So I'm never concerned about that. As far as goes with the bench in this case here, I agree with everyone saying like Nemhard and I would like him in there. I think I want 1 to 2 of Sharp and Mathurin because we need more shot creation, as Coach says. And I want to bring. I would love to get both of them on, but I don't think how this team's built right now. I don't think it's possible. I would bring back the couple of guys from Victoria as Wiggins as well as Lyles, and you assume Murray's coming. I disagree a little bit with Coach. It's the Olympics, man. I don't think unless someone's hurt or there's a serious issue, like, wherever Wiggins' situation is from a personal standpoint, unless it's something like that, all hands on deck. I have no doubt everyone wants to play in that to get a gold medal. So I have no doubt Murray's going to play. With another year of health and strength, I think Murray's going to play. They're going to pry him out of there for him not to play. I think Wiggins is going to play once everything's good on his home front. He's going to play. I think Lyles, all them dudes should be playing in this case here. I said before, of the 5 that's left back, I guess, it'll be me. It would be Nembhard, one of Sharp or Mathurin, pick whatever one you want. Lyles, I would say Clark if he's healthy. That's the 4th guy, and the 5th guy I think is that big that the coach is talking about. So it could either be if Zachy be still around for it, fine, in case you got to play a JV or someone, or the Tristan Thompson spot. That to me is like that's the to get that big. Or if you really want to say, you know what, I got enough bigs, then I'm going all in. Maybe I put both Sharp and Mathurin on the team in this case here. You know, I want ballers, man. I want no mercy when I go with that bench. There's gonna be pressure coming down on you, raining down on you on that rim pressure. That's what I want. That's it. So that's my 12. I think I got 12 when it's all said and done. You know, assuming I get Wiggins, I might be having a little more if I count Wiggins. I think I got Wiggins in there and Murray. So if I add them to it, maybe I have to take someone off. But that's what I'm looking at pretty much of that group.
Coach?
Yeah, like kind of like what Beyond said. If you can add Wiggins and Jamal Murray, you do it. I just wonder about their commitment next year. That depending on their seasons, personal stuff, how it goes. That's all. But my biggest thing is the bench, and like you said about the chemistry on the team. Is it the biggest worry I have? Not really, but is it the least worry that I have? Nope, it's kind of in the middle there. I see your point about some of the chemistry issues, depending on who is added, who is not added, because you know they're NBA players. They have egos, justifiably so. But I think in the end, this is it's one goal, it's one team, and they're going to have to set that aside if there are any. Hopefully, there's not. Beyond had a question there.
Yeah, I was going to say before I go Beyond.
The one chemistry issue that could come into play, and this is the unknown factor. It's a great thing to happen, but if say Mathurin or Sharp blows up this season in the NBA, and then you pick him for the team, now you have a scenario where you have a guy now might be on the cusp of all-star in the NBA. Say you just work that as the scenario. And now you're coming and putting him on this team now, and now you're telling him he's going to play second fiddle to Dillon Brooks. Right? That's where things get interesting. If you have one of those young players goes a step up, which is quite possible, where one of those two guys all of a sudden look like a guy like, oh, he's just not a dude. He's going to be like a dude. And now all of a sudden now things get interesting. That is the scenario where the chemistry could be a bit of an issue.
Well, I kind of see this from a different perspective as well. Let's say Jamal Murray and Andrew Wiggins come on this team. Those two are going to start. 2 of our starters will go to the bench. Probably Dillon Brooks, probably Kelly Olynyk. Maybe there's an issue there. Maybe there's not. I don't know.
I don't know about Olynyk, but just because we have no bigs.
I don't think that's an issue for Brooks. I think there's a certain. I think one thing with NBA players that they have is they respect game, and if they know those dudes there, they will step back. I don't think those 2 dudes are an issue in this case to me because like as I said before, there's no way Dillon Brooks could come to anybody and say like, I should be starting over Jamal Murray or Andrew Wiggins. No one would say that. His mama wouldn't say that. Like no one's gonna say that, man.
Or
like,
RJ. RJ goes to the bench, maybe.
So be it if RJ goes to the bench.
I'll say this. At the one thing that makes us unique as a up and coming program, we've never really won anything. And so the chance to really win something for a lot of these NBA players too and add to their resume because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not the NBA Hall of Fame. It's the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Bingo.
It can mean a lot to a lot of these guys. And so I think there's a much greater chance of them all pulling together and all pulling in the same direction than say an American squad where it's like, I mean, we're going to win gold anyways, right? Like that's their mentality. And so if you already know, I was like, I'm going to just add another like key to the thing. You treat it differently. You almost, I don't want to say disrespect it, but you take it for granted. But like, there's been so much to build up to even just getting there that I just whoever's picked, I just see them all coming together for the greater goal because like the greater goal is a greater goal. So for
Right.
example, RJ, if he's on the bench, he's gonna understand because at the end of the day, like how proud would his parents be to see him come home with gold
His
or
father
with
was
silver?
sitting on the bench. Like I mean, like when so,
RJ, I'm not so worried about because his dad running Canada basketball, the GM, he's going to be there. I got no
Yeah,
issues.
listen,
He's
son.
committed, I think, right? Some of the other guys who are kind of
Hmm.
committed, but they may take it off. I'm a little more worried about them. But like you
I mean,
said,
I like if there was a guy that hasn't played for this team at all and then showed up for the Olympics, I would say, you know what, okay, this might be a bit of an issue. But everyone, the people we talked about, has at least played on this NBA on this Canada team at least once.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so it's not like we're dealing with somebody like just showed up, like, Johnny come lately and say, hey, I'm here, guys. And it's like, no, it's like that's not the case. All of them have played at some point.
Yeah, like it's like okay, so I'll put it this way: if suddenly Chris Boucher was like, "I want to finally like show up," it'd be like, "Come on, bro, like, who you be? Like, where have you been for the last?" You know.
Right.
To Jonathan's point, though, the other thing too is that there's a lot of guys that are coming from Victoria anyways, and coming from this tournament anyways, just because we need help. So I think even if it's a slightly different squad, you're still having so much continuity that I don't worry quite as much. But I do think it's a good question though.
great question. It's a great problem to have.
Right, for sure, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have one more
Mm-hmm.
question, if that's okay, about kind of the roster. So I think I know one thing is always there's always the talk about how kind of the FIBA game is a little different than the NBA in terms of there's like slightly rules different, physicality, and like the Euro pros, who I kind of keep going back to, there's a lot of different levels, of course, but the legit kind of Euro League level players, which Canada has like two or three, really. They're kind of really experienced with, those FIBA rules, and those kind of nuances, which is kind of part of the reason why I've always kind of given them a little bit more. Even though let's say their like one-on-one skill might not be as good. Um, like, is that a factor in your mind, or do you think like the NBA guys can kind of adjust um, on the fly, if that makes sense?
I think that the tournament for the Olympics, if I'm not mistaken, it happens over 15 days and it's 9 games. It's a very, very fast tournament. For that reason, you have to just be able to adjust quickly. So from that standpoint, I think that I would still go with the NBA players. If you really, really, because at the end of the day, say you choose like one of these, say you do the, I don't want to call it a sympathy spot, but say you have like this the one spot where it's like, okay, congratulatory, you've helped us with the program, we want to bring you. That person's probably like, say it's I don't know, say it's one of the Scrub Brothers, because it would be one of the Scrub Brothers more than likely. Are they really, like, to Beyond's point, in crunch time, are they really going to play in an Olympic tournament where you don't really have a lot of time to play in terms of play around with different things? You're there to win. They're they'd be lucky to even see floor time. I mean, I would love to go to the Olympics with a squad where it's like Nikhil Alexander Walker is like one of the end of the bench guys that may not even play. Like, just think about that from a talent perspective and like what that can do. And the thing is that what's nice about our team is because we've kind of brought the same NBA players along for the ride thus far. I think that those guys can help a lot. In terms of, this is our World Cup experience, especially if they continue to go far in this tournament. There's a lot of experience that they've gained. So someone like a Kelly Olynyk, I mean, he's been around forever. He has enough experience to really kind of like, I guess, calm things in my mind, but I don't know if Coach or Beyond feel the same way. I'll go in reverse order this time. So, Coach.
I always think there's an adjustment period for like mainly the Americans in Canada. Like Americans have so much talent for one. They lost in 2020, I believe, in one of their games. I think it was against Nigeria. I may have got that wrong, but this is part of growth of the game of basketball too, right? The Americans are not the powerhouse that they used to be. Like I remember when in 2000 when the Americans were by far they were the best team. And then ever since 2004, more or less, they've kind of been great, and then they've been pretty good. Kind of right now, I view them as pretty good, but not great. But in terms of your question about kind of adjusting to FIBA, Canada has gotten better. I think kind of this is what Kenyon was saying. Canada has progressively gotten better with every game that they've played, more or less. And that's the adjustment period that goes into it. They played their first exhibition game against Germany. You could tell that they just had not had enough experience together quite yet. But once they played, I think it was New Zealand they played, and then they played Germany again, and they won, and then they played Spain. It's like, oh, we got something now. We have enough talent to compete because in many years we just didn't have enough talent to compete. Period. We have also a coaching staff too, very much used to FIBA basketball. Jordy grew up like coming through the coaching ranks in FIBA with Sergio Scariolo in Spain, and I think in the Olympics he was with um, uh, Mike Brown in Nigeria's team. So I do think there's always a bit of an adjustment period, but there's always one thing that typically will win out: talent. NBA, FIBA, or the Olympics. If you got talent, you have a chance to win.
Yeah. I'm of the mindset that I think honestly, I think that's a bit overrated. Just to piggyback off a coach's point, like, well, you got the goods, you'll be all right, man. That's how I see it, man. I think what usually ends up happening for the North American teams is that first couple of games, it's the officiating more than anything else. Whereas realize you're not getting no touch call, and Harden's looking around like, what the heck? Yeah, dude, you ain't getting that here. And then they figure out, okay, we got to play like old school way. Okay, so be it. And then they figure it out, and then they start pounding people, and it's a wrap. So I'm not concerned about that so much. And I think even with with the officiating a little bit with Canada, they were still not really figuring out that part of like how physical things will be. And once you get to that part and you figure that out, especially underneath the hoop, then you're good to go if you got the talent. And I don't see why we should handicap ourselves, or in this case here, or kneecap ourselves. It's like, oh, we'll play, have a bench of essentially of a rotation, essentially 9 guys. That if even one guy or 2 guys get hurt, we're now down the guys playing from the CBL or something like that, or something like, no, that shouldn't be the case. We should not be in that position. And I think right now, I think I think when I see how the layout's going and how they're setting things up, there should be no reason why they shouldn't be able to get almost everybody they want. Unless somebody, as I said before, some grave situation where someone gets hurt, they should be able to get almost anybody they want. And that's how I see it. I don't think they should hold back at all for this team. You've come too far. The frustration of this team, that's the other thing too. It was relief and frustration, and all of it combined the one for the after that win. It's those 20 years of getting the doorstep and not getting here. And now you're going to go there and say, hey, you know what? We'll only play about 8 dudes in this case from the NBA. That doesn't make sense to me. So I think they'll be fine. I think the team itself, the team will be good. And I agree with Coach what you said there. I think the talent wins out, and just put the best team you can. Man.
Absolutely. Coach, you were going to say something?
I have a question, actually. I have a question for you all, and I say this because it's very relevant right now. Do you guys like watching FIBA basketball more or the NBA?
That's a good question. I mean, I like both. I like the game, period.
Yep.
I know it's like, it seems like an easy answer, but I know that not everyone likes watching the game. Some people don't even like watching the Raptors. Um, and the
It was
Raptors
hard
fans.
this year.
It was, which that's why if there's ever a tough year for any team, watch it in smaller bites, people. That's my trick. Watch it in 5 games at a time. Don't look ahead. Don't look back. That's a really good question. I like the physicality of the FIBA game. I like their rules around goaltending. Because it completely changes how you look at different things. The NBA, in a sense, has become very homogenized. And I think the other thing too that's interesting about the FIBA game is once you have your squad, you got to figure it out. There's no moves to make. You can't trade a dude. You have to figure out a way to win, which kind of goes back to the point that we keep harping on, is bring your A game basically. But yeah, I mean, either way, you know, there's not a lot of necessarily like easy wins per se. The other thing that I'll quickly say, just to answer the question from before, um, I'll make a really quick Raptors analogy. In a way, it's kind of like the Raptors. Sometimes you have like an Eastern Conference or whatever, where it's like just go for it, make a move. Why are we waiting for guys to develop, or you know, or maybe not develop or figure their stuff out? Just you have the tools, go for it, make a move. At least come in with a solid bench, right? As we've seen. So I think yeah, I think the other thing too is, yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question. FIBA or yeah. I'll let others give theirs.
Yeah, sure. I think FIBA is it's pretty bad organization for a lot of things, but I would say their kind of broadcast setup I like and I enjoy more. I really like um the huddles, like the mic in the huddle, where you can just like, you know, you can hear Jordy just like screaming at the players and ripping them, or you can like listen in on sometimes like what sets they're gonna run after the timeout and like the terminology that they're using. And so that's kind of one of the things that I used a lot when Nick Nurse was the coach, and kind of just figuring out what the names of his different sets were. So I think I really enjoyed that. I really enjoy the lack of commercials. And it's just, I know it's 40 minutes versus 48 minutes, but it just always feels like it goes by a lot quicker. And so I think for me, just from like a purely like watching it like as a consumer perspective, I think I definitely enjoy like the FIBA kind of broadcast a lot more than the NBA one. But I think like, you know, sometimes some FIBA games, you know, like that Brazil game, it's like so like slow, and there's like, you know, there's no scoring, or there's really low scoring, and it's just like it's just not a great watch, which I don't think that happens as often in the NBA. And so I think from like a purely obviously pure basketball kind of product, I think I would probably obviously go with the NBA as being a better one and kind of more entertaining. But I think that the TV broadcast, I just enjoy it a lot more with how things are set up with FIBA.
Yeah, I'll just quickly chime in and just say, like, there's sometimes when the game's so lopsided in FIBA too, that it's just like it's not in like I remember it was like the American squad with Melo against Nigeria, and it was just like like it was tough to watch, and it's like I was rooting for America. You know, it's just like this is not that's not fun to watch. But when you know, as the American squad has kind of aged out and there's this new you know, and a lot of other squads are kind of changing, I think it's becoming more interesting. I agree wholeheartedly with the broadcast where you're like kind of in the huddle with them. Beyond.
No, I'm same sentiment as Jonathan. His analysis is how I feel exactly about it. But I mean, I'll just say the reason why it's the case is money. That's the reason why, right? Because there's no way the NBA product's gonna have coaches out there reaming out guys and players yelling at each other. They'll be all over Stephen A. Smith's thing on the next day. Oh my God. So they're not having that. They're curating it. They want to sell it to kids and stuff like that. FIBA doesn't care about that, right? So FIBA can put whoever they want, and you know, stuff like that, as well as commercials, because they don't have to pay for that either, right? So like, they don't care about that. So it's the money factor that comes into play with it. But yeah, I'm the same way. The product, the actual talent on the thing is better in the NBA. You know, it's a little more explosive, fast breaks and stuff of that nature. You didn't enjoy watching Charles Barkley knock out a bunch of Angolan players around? You didn't enjoy that? Come on, stuff there. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is what it is, guys. Like that's what it is. But I mean, go ahead, Coach.
No, I'll just answer, I guess, the question that I had asked. I love FIBA. I love it way more than the NBA, and this is why. Some of the things that Jonathan and Kenyon and Beyond had mentioned, I agree. I love the broadcast. I love being in the huddles and stuff like that and seeing what actually goes on. and the unfiltered voices of Jordy and stuff like that. Um, why I say I like FIBA more because I see it as kind of this is definitely subjective, but how I kind of view basketball. In the Lithuania and the Americans game, I saw Lithuania have guys who can stretch the floor and post up. I watched Valanciunas shoot threes and post up. I watched Montiunas for Lithuania shoot threes and post up. I'm watching Spain execute beautiful offense, a lot of backcourt cuts and flare screens, a lot of just very team oriented basketball. I'm watching Canada's defense, especially their perimeter defense. It's one of the tops, certainly in this tournament, if not the tops in this tournament. Um, so, kind of this hybrid basketball where you see guys who can stretch the floor, but guys who can post up. In the NBA game, it's become very perimeter oriented where everybody is shooting threes now. And I don't see many guys who are posting up anymore. Not in that kind of late 90s, early 2000s. Beyond would probably know more about that. But that's what I'm kind of seeing from the FIBA. I'm seeing a little bit of both. And me as a fan, I appreciate that.
So I would just interject and say that that's more to do with the officiating. When you let guys play in the post, then you guys will be encouraged to score in the post.
Right.
In the NBA, they don't reward guys in the post at all. So why even work on that? And I think one of the things the NBA needs to do is give a little more from a rule standpoint to give a break to post guys so they actually can get back to posting up people again. And
exactly.
A little bit more, be it how they have defensive schemes and stuff like that, wherever it might be, to help the post game. And I think it's coming back a little bit in the NBA, because I think last year you saw some changes on how guys were attacking a little bit. Even Jokic, who's known to be more of a finesse type of player, when push came to shove, he put his big rump on the block. It was a wrap at that point. Anytime Denver got in a little rut, it's like, here, just give the ball from 10 feet, let me go to work. And that was it. So there is some type of shifting. It tends to always swing in pendulums like this. So it seems to be moving slowly back to some area where post guys are starting to show their face again. So have hope there, Coach. It's coming back, I think.
I do, but you made a good point about the reffing, because the reffing in FIBA is totally different than the NBA. I like the reffing in FIBA. They guys don't get away with some of the things they do with the NBA. Hence the RJ play against Spain when he hooked the guy. Yeah, the other guy would have got the foul probably, and not RJ.
But the flop is what it is, the biggest piece, right? Because you're not going to get a flop when you try to back a guy down, and then the third guy looks like he got shot, right? That crap's not going to fly in the FIBA, right? So they're like, dude, you're going to get dunked on, be embarrassed in this case on a highlight film. That's what's going to happen to you. But in the NBA, they reward that nonsense. Therefore, I don't feel like why am I going to go to a post with a big player? Because I have some small guy or some guy here just flop in this case here. And I'm getting my 4 foul, some tit-tat nonsense. That's the reason why.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I mean, other than that, I don't have any questions myself. I'm just excited for Wednesday to roll around, watch the game. Hopefully, there's more games to watch from a Canadian standpoint. The one thing that I would hope gets better from a FIBA standpoint is, and I think they did well for this tournament, but I think they have to figure out some sort of streaming thing with Sportsnet in the future for the French thing. I mean, for those exhibition games, thankfully, Courtside had it on for free. So don't worry, people, it wasn't a legal stream. And I didn't have to even use a VPN. But the times when it's like you have to use a VPN to get access to, like, that needs to stop. They need to just properly invest in the thing in a way. I mean, Rogers, you have the technology, right? Like, invest in the game properly, show the stuff, because I mean, obviously at some point it gets a little bit ridiculous when you have to go through 3 steps just to watch a game, and like when you want to pay for the game too. So that's my little aside. Any final thoughts? And Johnathan, of course, is there anything that you want to plug?
Yeah, no, really. Most of my work is on Twitter, or Raptors Republic. Yeah, usually I guess after the game I will go and rewatch it, and then usually just clip things that I thought were interesting, or like some trends and things like that. But yeah, I'm really excited that there's kind of this palpable excitement, across the country and this kind of focus on Canada basketball. Because yeah, I mean, I haven't been like covering Canada basketball for a long time. I would say like maybe 2020 is when I started like writing for Raptors Republic and kind of covering Canada basketball. So yeah, so like, but I think this or that game against Spain and the kind of aftermath on social media was kind of the biggest moment I've seen so far, and I think that's really exciting. And I think, just looking at, I'm a Toronto Raptors fan too. I see like just how much focus is on the Toronto Raptors, and I think that it's great to see that at least some of it is translating over to the national team.
Absolutely, Coach.
I'll just tell people like to go follow Johnathan. He's got a lot of good stuff on Twitter. He posted a video I think yesterday, and Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong. He was on. It was a defensive possession with in a pick and roll. Canada basically trying to communicate, rotate, work through the pick and roll. It was a really good kind of 10-15 second segment that you would post. I really appreciated it because you got to see just how well Canada is playing basketball defensively in certain possessions and stuff like that. So I really encourage people to go check out Jonathan's stuff that he has on Canada's basketball. I know I've asked him a few times when some games are on and stuff like that. And just good to have you on the show today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that the tweet was it was like Spain was running a Spain pick and roll.
Yep.
And it was just how Canada decided to defend it. There's like always a couple, and I think Samson has this like really good video about how teams in the NBA kind of defend it, and that there's these three different coverages. Sometimes they'll triple switch, sometimes they'll just drop and then have the two guard switch. So yeah, so I mean, I guess spoiler alert, Canada did not do the triple switching because of their bigs are a little bit more on the less switchable side. But yeah, thanks for that. The support too.
Absolutely. And before Beyond goes, I'll just say all things in terms of Jonathan's work. So his Twitter will be linked in the description down below. Definitely check it out. Obviously, like, comment, and subscribe on this video, please and thank you. And of course, Beyond, your final thoughts.
Well, I just kind of want to sum up what we actually have seen, from a basketball standpoint in this country and the history of it. I mean, I'm a bit of an OG. I remember Donahue in this case, in those teams with Jay Triano and Leo Routins and that bunch, moving on up in this case to Nash and Barrett, and then all the way up to this Kojo in this case and Thompson and that team, and now obviously to the new team, the team here. Just for a lot of the folks that watch this, this program, this podcast, a lot of them are Raptor fans. A lot of them are young Raptor fans in this case here. I guess the give it equivalent of what I think we're on the brink of. This is the beginning of our We the North phase, I think, is what we're about to start here, if you had to put it from a Raptors perspective. I think we're on the cusp of something really special from a program standpoint and how we are deemed to be as a nation in basketball. And I think when we go back, say 20 years from now, this is going to look like a really huge moment. It kind of reminds me, actually, to be honest with you, it's probably, I guess, I say this is like the We the North era. You had to think like Nash and Barrett and that team, where I think that team, the team, I think that team went to the Olympics. I think that team did go to the Olympics. That was probably like the Vince Carter phase. You had to think it that way, right? To get folks excited. This is now the next phase where it's like, oh, wow, this is something that might be sustainable. So I think it's just something to appreciate at the moment, because I mean, it's nice when you're at the beginning of something like this, man. It's going to be fun to see this journey right now, see how this program grows, and Kenya and I have talked about the pipeline, and it looks like it's going to be, the prime of the pump, man. There's a lot more coming. Let's put it that way. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think the only thing is we need to put something in the milk or something, because we have no big people anymore, or maybe naturalize someone from another team or something, because like
it's a North American drought, really.
It is.
Americans have an issue with that. I don't know what's going on, but it's something to keep an eye on.
I mean, even across the league, like I'm thinking it's like even like Boston.
My dad has been saying so for like 5 years, man.
Yeah, I'm like, Boston, Al Horford, he's not American, right? It's just like
for America. I mean,
only
You have
one.
to look at Anthony
Yeah,
Davis is arguably the best big for America, right? And
yeah.
after that is probably Triple J, and then it's probably a drop off at that point for
And
bigs.
Triple J, I don't know if he should be playing center. I mean, I think he could
Got
be a
no
center
choice.
in sorry?
They got no choice. Who you
Oh,
gonna play?
exactly. But that's what I mean, right? I'm like, if they could have a real big man one day, but again, maybe 2029, stay locked in. But until then, we still have a really good team up and coming. So with that being said, that's been Basketball Rewind. Definitely check out the Canadian squad. As much as you can, try to navigate the FIBA site. I will leave that in a link in the description down below as well. FIBA, do better. From that standpoint, broadcast is great. And with that being said, take care, and everyone, peace.